Hi, I'm Jeanette Roche. This is Bridge City News. Here are some of the top stories we've been following. Liberal Party members start casting advanced ballots today to select their next leader and prime minister. Plus, Conservatives accuse Liberal frontrunner Mark Carney of lying about urging shareholders to move his company to the U.S. And it's Pink Shirt Day across the nation. We have the details about this anti-bullying initiative.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Jeanette Roche.
Thanks so much for joining us. U.S. President Donald Trump's order to implement 25% tariffs on Canadian imports and 10% on energy is still on schedule. The president said the duties on Canada and Mexico would be coming April the 2nd, a statement that was quickly clarified by U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick. Lutnick said the two countries have to prove to the president that they've satisfied new security demands from the U.S. at the borders to limit incoming fentanyl and migrants to avoid levies. However, Trump said he would be hard to convince. Liberal Party members can start casting advanced ballots today to select their next leader and prime minister. They can cast their ranked ballots by choices by mail or, in some instances, by phone, choosing between Mark Carney, Chrystia Freeland, Karina Gould, and Frank Baylis. The four candidates made their pitches to Liberal voters this week during two high-stakes debates in Montreal, where they discussed everything from health care and the economy to U.S. tariff threats.
We've been specific that we're eliminating the consumer carbon tax. We're taking a variety of other measures around that. And one of those measures that is related to, but not exclusively related to that, because it's a broader aspect, is a middle-class tax cut that will more than make up for the loss of the rebate that Canadians receive.
There is work to do now, absolutely. Now is the time we need to focus on jobs and growth. But the central issue for the Canadian economy and for our existence as a country right now is Donald Trump. This is an existential moment. My campaign is built around that. It is built around the recognition that this is a challenge to our existence as a country.
A new leader will be chosen on March 9th, and a federal election is widely expected to be called soon after. Conservatives are alleging that the front runner in the federal Liberal leadership race urged shareholders to support his company's relocation from Canada to New York City months before he resigned from his job. They also are accusing Mark Carney of being untruthful about when he resigned from the board of Brookfield Assets Management. Today, both Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre and Conservative MP Michael Barrett took to social media to say that Carney lied about having nothing to do with Brookfield moving their headquarters out of Canada to the U.S. On his X account, Poilievre said, quote, "Documents show he chaired the board meeting that unanimously determined the move, taking jobs away from Canadians. His name is on the letter urging shareholders to approve the move. Why did Mark Carney lie about his decision to sell out Canadian jobs?" End quote. Barrett, on the other hand, says Carney was chair of Brookfield's board when they unanimously voted to move their headquarters to the States and posted the letter Carney wrote to shareholders urging them to approve the move. Carney, however, claims that he had already left the company when that move happened. The people of Ontario will head to the polls tomorrow for their provincial election, an election that was called only a month ago by Doug Ford. The leader of Ontario's Progressive Conservatives says the party is the only one that can stand up to President Trump and his hefty tariff threats. Ford says he just wants to win, as he spoke to media on this last full day of campaigning.
The day those tariffs come, I've directed the LCBO to pull off every bottle of booze there is from the U.S., and there's a lot of them. There's 3,600 products from 35 states. So there's going to be a lot of upset Americans that they can't ship their booze up to Ontario. And I'm encouraging every other premier in the country, pull the U.S. alcohol off your shelves. That's number one. Number two, we have $30 billion of procurement. We will pull every contract off any U.S. companies, especially we do a lot in the tech sector. They're done, they're gone.
You have to understand, and I know the Premier doesn't, how integrated the grid system is and how, was it 2002 or 3, a tree fell on a transponder back in Ohio and we lost power for 2 days. So it's very integrated. It's something we have to look at very closely, the impact of our energy grid.
Liberal leader Bonnie Crombie is spending the bulk of her day in Mississauga visiting businesses and local campaigns, while Green Party leader Mike Schreiner is in Kitchener. Meanwhile, NDP candidate Marit Stiles says her party is the only one that can bring real change to the province and that she'll bring in measures to make life more affordable. The Canadian Taxpayers Federation is taking the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation to court to force the public broadcaster to provide transparency regarding the money it spends on advertising. The legal challenge stems from an access to information request filed by the CTF, requesting records detailing how much the CBC has spent on advertising over the past 5 years. Their request was denied. General Counsel for the CTF, Devin Drover, explains why.
They're claiming an often used exemption under the Access to Information Act, saying that it is confidential information that will hurt their competitive position. While, this might be the case, for example, if we were asking how much did they bid on X contract, that might cause a problem where, another agency might be able to see, oh, well, if they're spending X dollars, we know we don't need to spend Y, we can lower our bidding. We're not asking for that level of granularity here. We're just asking for the number. Is it X million dollars? Is it Y million dollars? It should not be a difficult piece of information for the CBC to reveal, and I think taxpayers are absolutely entitled to it. And you have to look at the context right now. The CBC has been struggling financially. Their ratings are at abysmal low levels. Despite that, they're asking for more money constantly. So if they're asking for more money from taxpayers, taxpayers want to know and have every right to know where that money is being used, including how much is being spent on ads.
This court case comes on the heels of Heritage Minister Pascal St-Onge's recommendation that the CBC's public funding almost double in a bid to bolster the public broadcaster and end its reliance on advertising. More than 800 community peace officers from 34 large and mid-sized municipalities will immediately integrate their communications and dispatch systems with local police. This move by the Alberta government is meant to collaboratively tackle the social disorder that arises from use of illicit drugs, including fentanyl. Minister of Public Safety and Emergency Services Mike Ellis says this initiative is part of a Team Canada approach to weighing off the threat of tariffs promised by U.S. President Donald Trump, brought on by concerns of fentanyl making its way south of the border.
This is an issue which is occurring both ways across this border. Prime Minister Trudeau has responded by committing 10,000 personnel that would be deployed to strengthen border protection and to combat the issue of the fentanyl crisis. Here in Alberta, we're doing our part for a strong Team Canada solution with a visible law enforcement presence to deter illegal activity. Currently, over 800 peace officers within Alberta have different authorities than police officers, and that distinction will remain in place. I will say by integrating their efforts, we can ensure all available law enforcement resources are working together under a unified command to combat fentanyl.
Ellis adds the province will evaluate the effectiveness of this initiative at a later date. In local news, Lethbridge City Council conditionally approved multiple capital funding requests for housing development through the Affordable and Social Housing Capital Fund. 3 approvals were granted based on the unanimous recommendation of the Economic and Finance Standing Policy Committee. In total, the city will commit $1.8 million for 112 housing units. This includes $1.1 million to Green Acres Foundation to help build 56 mixed-use developments for seniors. Various conditions will need to be met, including development permit acquisition and obtaining adjacent funding from a higher government level. Lethbridge City Council also voted unanimously Tuesday to recommit its opposition to any and all coal development that risk damage to the Old Man watershed. Councillor Belinda Croson says she tabled the official business motion based on many inquiries and concerns on the matter. She saw it as an opportunity to reaffirm Council's stance publicly once again.
We've known since the 1970s, and that 1976 coal policy came about after decades of fighting. The people of Alberta love our mountains, want to protect our water, and are about protecting the environment, protecting our agriculture, and protecting, the environment and everyone who relies on that water system. We have an information session coming up on April 10th at one of the Economic Standing Policy Committees, where our staff will be bringing forward a presentation because, of course, science is changing, and we want to see some of the new studies that the province has brought out and what is actually happening. So we'll see that. Because it's a Standing Policy Committee, members of the public are welcome to come as well, and we're hoping that we'll have a fulsome conversation for information about what the newest standings are today.
Part of the OBM directs the mayor to issue a public statement outlining the city of Lethbridge's concern related to coal mining and risk the provincial government to ensure that there are no coal mine projects allowed on the eastern slopes. The annual Ag Expo is underway at the Lethbridge and District Exhibition, which showcases some of the newest developments in the agriculture industry. BCN's Landon Hickok is at the Agri-Food Hub and Trade Center to provide a glimpse into what will be featured throughout the week.
It's packed here at the Lethbridge and District Exhibition here at the Agri-Food Hub and Trade Center for the annual Ag Expo, which just got underway on Wednesday. Now, over 300 different vendors from different nations across the world are here to share and present their new technologies and advancements in the agriculture industry and sector, including equipment, livestock supplies, chemicals, and seeds, and many more. This expo will run for 3 days until Friday and has featuring the returns of many beloved events, including the 128th annual North American Seed Fair, the return of the Double C Egg Comb Machinery Row, and there will also be featuring different events and industry-leading speakers. To highlight some of the features here this week, I got to check out some of the vendors in the main hall, including one from FrontLink, which claims to have the world's first autonomous seeder and weeder, the Farm Droid FD20, which runs using GPS and is powered by solar.
With this, we can do precision seeding, so we can put 1, 2, 3, 4 seeds down each hole, and very, very precise. On top of that, with it being autonomous, you get that option to do other jobs while this is out there doing the work for you. We always want to see the newest, latest, greatest that's coming out, as well as the farmers. So when we come to the shows, we also walk the shows. We want to go see what's going on. We want to talk to the people that are on the ground and see how things are going for them.
Another vendor is PGS Equipment, which is showcasing a combine specifically designed for harvesting beans.
We're here with our bean combine. It's a machine built in Brazil. We bring it into Western Canada. We sell it here primarily for the edible beans. It can also be used in peanuts, what you can find down in Georgia area. Shows like this, it's wonderful to see the growth in be more efficient, be more productive, be more innovative in new technologies from all around the world, right here in Alberta.
This is one of the best days of the year when Ag Expo kicks off, when you get in here and you see all the hard work that's gone in to make sure that everything is in this building, is lined up, and then you see all the great equipment that's able to be in here to open the doors and to let the public in and have everybody here in the whole ag industry under one roof. Really is one of the best days of the year.
The Ag Expo runs until Friday, each day from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. here at the Agri-Food Hub and Trade Center. For Bridge City News, I'm Landon Hickok.
The University of Lethbridge held its second annual Inniskim Future Students Day it's designed to break barriers and open pathways to success for Indigenous students. Beth Greer, Indigenous Recruitment Officer of the University of Lethbridge, explains the purpose of holding events like this and shares the special programs the university offers for Indigenous students.
is essentially our Indigenous open house. So it's meant to provide all the different opportunities on campus that are available. You're able to put a face to the name of who you're connecting with and learn more about the programs that we offer, the services. So it's just meant so that students that don't have that person to help them know where to start, well, they can come here and we help them start right from our very own doors. We have our Indigenous Governance and Business Management program that is special to us. We have our Indigenous Health, our Indigenous Art Studio and Museum Studies, and then of course we have our Indigenous Student Success Certificate. We've faced a lot of different challenges throughout the years and our history and everything. So sometimes we just need that helping hand where you need someone that's relatable, your role model, that's someone from community. So
the University of Lethbridge's Blackfoot name is Iniskim, meaning sacred buffalo stone, and it was gifted by Elder Bruce Wolfchild back in 2002. The Lethbridge Sports Hall of Fame has named its class of 2025 and Sports Persons of the Year at the Cavendish Farms Center on Wednesday. This year's athlete inductees include former NHLer Kyle McLaren and former boxer Curtis Hatch. Team awards went to the 1986 Lethbridge Miners and 1987 Lethbridge Elks baseball team. Kevin Kavam, who oversees operations for both the Lethbridge Bulls and the Hurricanes group, were awarded Builder Awards. The Builder inductees say they each credit the people and organization around them for their personal successes.
It means a ton. We put a lot of work into this, and when I say we, it was a big effort. I just came up with the stupid idea. It's a huge honor to be recognized in the Lethbridge Hall of Fame. It's been 40 years, so I'm not going to say it's about time, but it's a huge honor.
You know, I think it's testament to the sport itself, not to me individually, but the sport itself and all the people that have been involved with it and continue to be involved with it, that you can't do what we do in the community without, you know, a workforce behind you.
The full list of inductees are found on the Lethbridge Sports Hall of Fame website. The induction ceremony will take place on May 9th at the Agri-Food Hub and Trade Center. Looking forward to that. Well, today is Pink Shirt Day. It's an annual event across Canada that invites people to beat bullying with kindness. The original event was organized back in 2007 by two grade 12 students, David Shepard and Travis Price of Berwick, Nova Scotia, who bought and distributed 50 pink shirts after a 9th grade student was bullied for wearing a pink polo shirt the first day of school. Today, Alberta Minister of Education Dimitrios Nicolaides said in a statement, quote, "All students deserve to feel safe, welcome, and respected in school. Alberta Education recognizes that preventing bullying is a shared responsibility, one that includes parents, students, teachers, and the wider community." Many schools across the nation held events and assemblies, including Westminster Elementary School in Lethbridge. Teacher and counselor Stephen Combe says students and staff held a Pink Shirt Day giveaway.
It's important that we show that we stand beside them and that we're always there to help build each other up, because a school is a community. It's part of our deep roots in our community, and I think it also helps us to have that same passion and compassion for people as we get older and grow up. And so in the classrooms, we do activities that relate to anti-bullying, but also in terms of kindness. And then around the school, we've had our assembly today. We're really pleased that Tradesman was the company that came in today that actually provided all the shirts for all the kids today as a show of support with our school.
Pink Shirt Day has since spread to other countries, including New Zealand. Well, we didn't quite reach our daytime high temperature of 14 degrees today, but we got pretty close, and more amazing temperatures are on the way, and so is the weather forecast. I'll be right back with that right after this quick break. Well, we didn't quite reach that high of 14 degrees today, but I'm not complaining because it did get up to around 11 or 12 this afternoon. And look at that tomorrow, high of 17 degrees. And then as we look forward into the weekend there, up to 18 degrees. It's going to be beach weather before we know it. Now, keep in mind, they do call us the Windy City, and it's for a reason. So we had up to 60 kilometer per hour wind gusts today. Not horrible compared to tomorrow, Thursday. Here's what we're expecting. Up to 80 kilometer per hour wind gusts, gusting at times to 100 kilometers per hour on a Thursday with that lovely 17 degrees. So it's not going to feel as lovely with those 100K winds. And then on Friday, sunshine, 10 degrees. And then like we were saying, they're 18 on a Saturday, 14 on a Sunday. And then a strange thing happens early next week. We're going to dip down to single digits there. So 5 degrees on Monday and 3 on Tuesday. Monday, we could expect a little bit of rain or snow there. Okay, so the average high for this time of year is more like around 3 degrees, average low -9. So we're doing very well as far as temperature goes this week. The record high on this day happened back in 1988 and it was 19 degrees. And then the record low in Lethbridge was 1947 and it was -33 that day. Sun rose this morning at 7:21, getting earlier, and sunset getting later. So 6:09 now is when the sun goes to bed. We're looking at 10 hours, 48 minutes of daylight now. Okay, so on the west coast tomorrow, seeing mainly sunny skies, a little bit of cloud action there, though, but decent temperatures. 12 in Victoria, 11 in Vancouver, 7 degrees for the high in Edmonton tomorrow with up to 60 kilometer per hour winds. Calgary, clear skies, and 14, also looking at 40 to 60K winds. So staying pretty windy across the prairies there. Saskatoon also looking at that 60K winds, high of 4 degrees, mix of sun and cloud. Sunshine in Regina tomorrow. Could see some fog patches dissipating though in the morning there, high of 2 degrees and 30 to 50K winds. Winnipeg could see some light periods of snow, but then a mix of sun and cloud and high of 1 degrees. Now, as we get into the central part of the country, we are going to be seeing much more precipitation there. So Toronto seeing light periods of snow and possibly 40% chance of showers there. So it could be flurries mixed with showers by the afternoon, high of 4 degrees there. 1 for the high in Ottawa, but 5 centimeters of snow expected there. 2 to 4 expected in Montreal. So 2 to 4 centimeters of snow, that is high of 0. And then as we get into Atlantic Canada, Fredericton seeing a high of 1 degrees tomorrow. Also 2 centimeters of snow expected. Snow also expected in Halifax there, 4 for the high. 2 degrees the expected high tomorrow in Charlottetown, looking at 2 centimeters of snow. And also tomorrow night, that could be changing to rain, so 20 to 30 millimeters of rain. Now St. John under a rainfall and wind warning tonight, up to 100 kilometer per hour winds and up to 20 millimeters of rain. But by tomorrow, that rain switching to snow and those wind gusts cutting in half to 50 kilometers per hour, high of 0 there. So there you have it. That is your forecast. Apple says it's fixing a bug with its dictation feature on some iPhones that briefly suggests the word Trump when a word with an R is spoken, including racist. Some iPhone owners posted online videos this week detailing how the glitch works. They show that when users activated the dictation feature and said the word racist, the word Trump appeared in the text window before quickly being replaced by the correct word. Our news team attempted this on the Text and Notes app. We recorded what took place, and as you can see, the word you appears and is quickly replaced by the word racist. We reached out to Apple for comment and are awaiting their response at the time of this newscast. Canadian asset owners with a collective $53 billion in holdings say they're disappointed that Canada's banks are moving away from net zero emissions plans, calling for financial institutions to follow through on climate commitments. An open letter from 34 signatories raises concerns about departures from the UN-backed Net Zero Banking Alliance, which all of Canada's 6 largest banks quit in January. Some of the names signed on to the letter include the Trottier Family Foundation, the Canada Post Pension Plan, the United Church of Canada, and the University of Victoria. With some environmental organizations ringing climate alarm bells, is a net zero emissions target for 2050 realistic? Well, Cody Battershill, founder of Canada Action, believes Canada is in a position to supply global markets with multiple energy products.
Oil demand is at an all-time record. Natural gas demand is at an all-time record. Coal demand is at an all-time record. And demand, consumption of wind, solar, hydro also at an all-time record. We need more of all forms of Canadian energy. And as far as I'm concerned, as long as the world needs oil or natural gas or potash or uranium or agriculture products or forestry products or electricity from hydro, nuclear, wind, solar, as long as the world needs those resources, those commodities, if we can make them, we absolutely need to be getting behind our Team Canada, Made in Canada approach to getting those resources to the world. It makes no sense to let other countries benefit while Canadian families are losing out.
Catch that full interview with Cody Battershill from Canada Action and BCN's Naveen Day coming up right after the break. Now here's a look at today's markets.
The TSX was up 124 points on the day to finish at 25,328. The Dow was down 188 points to 43,433. The S&P 500 was up close to a point to 59.56, and the Nasdaq was up 48 points to finish at 19,075. West Texas Intermediate Oil was down 12 cents to 68.81 US per barrel. Natural gas was down 17 cents to 3.96 US. Gold was down $2.33 to $29.1601 US an ounce, and silver was up 8 cents to $31.85 US an ounce. Feed wheat is at $8.57 per bushel, barley is at $6.58, canola is at $14.74, and corn is at $8.28 per bushel. Live cattle were down 67 cents to $198.82. Feeder cattle March contract was up 15 cents to $274.37. Lean hogs April contract was up $1.73 to $88.30, and the Canadian dollar was down slightly over the past 24 hours to 69.70 US.
Recapping one of our top stories, Liberal leadership front-runner Mark Carney is facing scrutiny by Conservatives. They allege Carney urged shareholders to support his company's relocation from Canada to New York City months before he resigned from his job. They are also accusing Mark Carney of being untruthful about when he resigned from the board of Brookfield Asset Management. Coming up after the break, Cody Battershill, founder of Canada Action, sheds light on the value and importance of Canada's energy industry. Also, when you see news happening in your community, be sure to send us an email at info@bridgecitynews.ca. You can also visit our website or our YouTube page anytime to check out more of our stories and interviews.
Fossil fuels, are they destroying our planet, or are they providing much-needed jobs? Does Canada really need a coast-to-coast pipeline? Well, joining us today from Calgary to discuss this and more is Cody Battershill. He's the founder of Canada Action, which is a volunteer-led grassroots movement encouraging Canadians to take action in support of the natural resources sectors of our nation. Cody, it's great to have you with us. Welcome back to Bridge City News.
Thank you so much for having me back again. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And Cody, it's really something to see almost all of our federal political leaders supporting the idea of building a coast-to-coast pipeline after years of blocking pipeline development. Any thoughts on why it took Donald Trump's tariff threats to change our collective mindset?
Well, I think it's a reminder that we currently sell most of our exports to the United States, and oil and gas is Canada's largest export, and most of that's going to the United States. So with the Trans Mountain expansion, we are now selling more oil to more countries than ever before, but it's still a small percentage of our total production and our total exports. And when your top trading partner says they might all of a sudden impose a tariff, I think it's a reminder that as Canadians, we should control our own economic security and have that necessary trade diversification. And that means building pipelines, ports, power lines, railways, and roads to empower the communities, the families, our fellow Canadians who make up our natural resource production so that we can control our own destiny, maximize the value of our resources, and have a stronger economy in the future.
And looking at a recent Angus Reid poll, we learned that 79% of Canadians surveyed say Canada needs oil and gas pipelines going from sea to sea. But there's still the hurdle of the province of Quebec. Do you think Quebec politicians will change their mind on this?
I think we've seen a lot of movement. And I think over the years, over the last 10 to 15 years, Canada Action and many of your listeners, many of your viewers today have been strong proponents for a strong resource sector to underpin our quality of life. Now we're seeing more provinces, more of our fellow Canadians recognize that. And it's a missed opportunity. We did not build Energy East when it was originally proposed. It was a regulatory roadblock after roadblock put in front of that project. But we need to get that project or a project like that built to connect Eastern Canada to Western Canada. We also have to remember we're still importing billions of dollars per year of oil, even from places like Saudi Arabia and Nigeria. Let's make sure all Canadians can access Canadian-made energy and natural resources to have better security and a better economy. And this is a very important topic with what's going on right now with President Trump.
But Quebec has traditionally been one of those roadblock provinces, and which is odd considering they get equalization payments from Alberta, which come from oil and gas. So do you see like any type of shift happening specifically with Quebec on this?
We've seen some polling numbers showing that in Quebec, there's more support for a pipeline like Energy East, also for revitalizing their LNG project that was also canceled by the federal government right around the time of the Russia invasion of Ukraine. And it's interesting when you think about how many countries in Europe and Asia have been literally asking for Canadian-made oil and natural gas in the last 3 years and longer. This is the time to bring our country together. I think we need to be working hand in hand with our fellow Canadians and other provinces, including Quebec, to build that consensus, rather than looking back and saying we made that mistake. Now we need to be talking about how we're going to work together going forward, because I do think we have more support than ever before in Quebec for these needed pipeline projects.
Now, there's been a lot of humming and hawing over the years, and obviously a coast-to-coast pipeline isn't something that's going to happen overnight. What kind of economic impact will it have on our nation should we not get this coast-to-coast pipeline?
Well, we're going to continue to be forced to import oil from places like Saudi Arabia, Nigeria, and many, many other countries. Yet we do get most of our oil imports from the United States. But I think if we could get that pipeline built, we might then see more investment in refining capacity so that, again, all Canadians can buy Canadian-made energy. I think that should be a goal. I think getting our trading partners in Asia and Europe also access to Canadian-made energy, oil, natural gas, and natural resources should be a key goal so that we can then have more negotiating power. When the United States says, well, we're going to tariff this or tariff that, we then have another customer that we can immediately divert some of our trade to, and it gives us more leverage in the negotiation. So I think it is critical for our economic security and ultimately for our sovereignty that we are able to maximize the value of our resources globally. And that's what the United States is doing, by the way. They're now the world's largest LNG exporter. They actually buy a lot of Canadian oil and then resell it to the world. Let's keep that money in Canada. Let's sell it ourselves to the world.
And you mentioned a couple of times how reliant Canada is on Saudi oil. Alberta oil and gas is sometimes referred to as dirty. How does our environmental record stack up against the rest of the world's fossil fuel providers?
You know, it's a really good question. Unfortunately, the federal government implemented some legislation to sort of restrict our ability to talk about Canada's environmental record. That was C-59. So I have to be careful what I say. I don't want to get offside with that legislation, which is, in my mind, limiting free speech and limiting our ability to talk about what Canadians have been doing. I think we need to get back to the country. We need to get back to a place where we're able to talk about what we're doing, attracting job-creating investment, building pipelines, getting more international companies coming back here to create jobs and prosperity. We need to sort of unwind the anti-energy, anti-resource sentiment that has been allowed to, spread the last 10 to 15 years. We've seen something like $670 billion of resource investment canceled, stalled, suspended. And let's be honest, those cancellations, all these protests against Canadian-made pipelines and energy, it hasn't reduced global consumption by a single drop. What it's done is it's helped other producers at Canada's expense. We as Canadians need to ask ourselves, do we want to continue to help other countries benefit economically, or do we want to be balanced, support local, buy local, build local, and support our families and have control over our economic future? And that means getting back to building.
And the reasons we typically hear from environmentalists who oppose fossil fuels is that there's a climate emergency and that greenhouse gas emissions are an imminent danger to the existence of the planet. How do you respond to that?
Oil demand is at an all-time record. Natural gas demand is at an all-time record. Coal demand is at an all-time record. And demand and consumption of wind, solar, hydro also at an all-time record. We need more of all forms of Canadian energy. Picking one over the other is divisive. It doesn't move our country forward. It doesn't support our families. Enough of the fear-mongering. Going back to the first Earth Day in the 1970s, all of these apocalyptic doomsday proclamations have not happened because we innovate, we collaborate, and we work together. And as far as I'm concerned, as long as the world needs oil or natural gas or potash or uranium or agriculture products or forestry products or electricity from hydro, nuclear, wind, solar, as long as the world needs those resources, those commodities, if we can make them, we absolutely need to be getting behind our Team Canada, Made in Canada approach to getting those resources to the world. It makes no sense to let other countries benefit while Canadian families are losing out.
Right, because those on the anti-fossil fuel side, they argue that it doesn't make sense to build pipelines now because the global demand for oil is going to drop significantly because of advances in green energy. Doesn't sound like a very convincing argument, though. And our current federal government is on record as stating that their end goal is to phase out fossil fuel production completely. But that doesn't even make sense either, considering how many products we use every day that are made from petroleum products. Do you have a list of products made from petrochemicals just to highlight, our reliance on Canadian oil and gas?
Well, here's a troubling question. Who lives and who dies? Half the world's food is grown with fertilizer produced with natural gas. So who chooses who gets food and who doesn't get food? It is ridiculous. It is nonsensical. It is full of fear and falsehoods to say that we can transition today. We can't. We need all of the above. And let's look at the record of these groups, Greenpeace and CAPE and Environmental Defense, and all of these groups who are proud to be shutting down Canadian pipelines, bragging. I mean, even Minister Guilbeault celebrated when Energy East was canceled before he was in government, and Northern Gateway were canceled. Well, what's happened since? All of these groups trying to block Canadian economic development and our trade diversification efforts, they've been saying oil's going to peak for the last 15 years, and that's why we shouldn't build pipelines. And what's happened? Oil has gone from about 92 million barrels a day of consumption to 103, 104 million barrels a day of consumption, and it's not slowing down. They have no credibility when it comes to forecasting energy demand. We need to support all forms of Canadian energy: wind, solar, hydro, nuclear, oil, natural gas, biofuels, and let's back our forestry industry, our miners, our farmers, our ranchers, our growers. Let's work together to secure a strong future for our country.
Now, you just mentioned wind and solar, and I want to talk about electricity for a bit here, because wind and solar, we have those, and we get some production from there, but it's not reliable, it's not consistent. The wind's not always blowing, the sun's not always out. We have some hydropower and natural gas and coal, but the federal government wants to see net zero by 2050. Is that realistic, and how realistic is it?
We are currently 9th in the world for installed wind capacity. Our electrical grid nationally is like 82% non-emitting. There's many good news stories from that environmental, renewable side of things that those groups who want to shut down Canada don't talk about. We need to be balanced. But the reality is a lot of these big, lofty goals globally have been walked back. Big companies who wanted to do more hydrogen, invest only in wind and solar, not oil and gas. We've seen a lot of those targets walked back as people are becoming smarter and waking up to the fact we need an affordable power supply that's reliable 24/7. And it's a fact the wind does not always shine. So what's going to back it up? Nuclear power, natural gas. There's a lot of investments in AI data centers and the internet that we all use in these massive data centers. So power generation consumption is going to continue growing. There's also 1 billion plus people that don't have reliable electricity today, that don't have clean cooking fuels. They also want to support their family's health and their ability to go to school and have healthcare and urbanize and develop. So there's a much more broad, balanced conversation, again, about supporting all of the above, rather than what we've heard for the last 15 years is shut down Canadian oil and gas. It's going to somehow save the planet. And that is ridiculous. And it has not helped Canada, and it has not reduced global consumption. But of course, it has helped other countries benefit at our expense.
And you also mentioned nuclear power. Where are we at with nuclear power, and how safe is it?
Nuclear power is among the safest forms of power generation. When you look at the life cycle of all forms of power generation, there's been some big safety incidents over the last 50 years that I think has caused a bit of unnecessary fear and concern. But we're now seeing sort of a renaissance, if you will, in nuclear power generation. Canada's a leader. We get above average global power generation from nuclear power. We have some of the world's largest reserves of uranium in Saskatchewan. The world wants to buy from Canada instead of buying from maybe countries that don't share our values or maybe are funding a conflict and war. So from uranium mining to nuclear power technology and generation, it's another big opportunity for our country to advance all of the above. And we need to work together. We need to get Quebec on board, Ontario, the West, the Atlantic provinces, and the territories. We are stronger together, having that balanced conversation to build up our communities, our families, and our economy and our security.
Cody, we're almost out of time, but I wanted to ask you about the outlook. Where do you see the public fossil fuel debate going over the next decade? Will there be public support or for Canada to actually put legislation in place that will create a reliable and stable business environment that actually attracts investors, or will we continue spending huge tax dollars to aim for 100% green energy?
Well, I think we're going to have a middle road. I think the public, more than ever before, is looking at affordability, inflation, security of energy, food, and also our economic security and sovereignty with trade diversification. So we need to continue to share the fact-based message of supporting Canadian oil, natural gas, and all forms of energy, working together. It's not east versus west or solar versus oil. We need all of the above if we want to build a strong economic future for our children and for our families and communities, urban and rural, northern, in the territories, on the coasts, and across the entire country. It's time to work together. It's time to put down the divisive fear-mongering from all of these anti-pipeline groups, and it's time to build Canada up. It's time.
Cody Battershill is the founder of Canada Action, a volunteer-led grassroots movement encouraging Canadians to take action in support of the natural resources sectors of our nation. Cody, thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you for your time. Thanks for having me.
The Bible tells us that Jesus is building his church around the globe, and he loves it when we walk together in unity. However, that is sometimes easier said than done. Trust me on that. But an international gathering is going to be taking place this weekend to help bring about unity and revival. Joining us today to talk more about this is Craig Weber. He is the pastor of Lighthouse Christian Fellowship in Lethbridge, as well as the chair of LEMA, which is the Lethbridge Evangelical Ministerial Association. Pastor Craig, it's great to have you with us.
Good to be here today. Thank you.
So this Gather 25, I'm told that this is a global event that's taking place simultaneously in 189 nations starting this Friday. Can you tell us what this meeting is all about?
Yes, well, Global 25 is a 25-hour live stream global gathering of the church around the world, as you said, for prayer, worship, repentance, and commissioning. The goal is to mobilize the 2.5 billion Christians on earth to participate in the mission of God to go and make disciples of the 5.5 billion people who are not yet believers. So it'll be a time where we have 7 live sessions coming from 6 continents around the globe in partnership with local churches and ministries. So it's going to be an exciting time.
25 hours of ministry. That sounds like quite the feat there. And if I understand correctly, churches from around the world will be watching the same live streamed events simultaneously and also praying and worshiping together. Tell us more about that.
Well, that's correct. Yes, they've got it so well organized that we're going to, all of us around the globe are going to be able to be there, beginning in the States on Friday, and then it goes to various other places, concluding with Peru at the end of our time. So over the 24 hours, people can come and be there the whole time if they want, or they can come and go as their schedule allows. But we're going to be connecting, hearing stories of what's going on in other places, hearing it from the persecuted church, praying together, worshiping together. I think it'll be an exciting and significant time.
What kind of attendance is expected for an event like this? I'm thinking back to my time as a child, and my father was an Anglican minister and also a professor of world religion. So it wasn't just church on Sunday, but sometimes he would be invited to speaking events, and sometimes these things would be 3-4 hours long, and I'd be like, 3 or 4 hours? I'd want to be home playing Nintendo. So, thinking back to that, what is the appeal for this 25-hour event?
Right. Well, that's a good question. It's a long one. It's a long haul, but I think the heart of it is we're trying to connect with every part of the globe, right? Every continent, short of Antarctica. That's the only one that's missing. In a meaningful way, to hear, connect, interact, pray. We don't know the exact numbers. I know that the committee that's organizing this internationally has had tens of thousands, probably getting close to hundreds of thousands of responses of people saying yeah, or churches saying yes, we're part of this. So the hope is we're going to have millions, if not more, engaged locally. Hard to say. It's the first time we're doing this locally. The ministerial is hosting this thing with the E-Free Church. And we don't know who all we're going to get. So it's an experiment in many ways, and it's a good first. And so we'll see how it goes, and we'll learn from it for the future.
And where will the event be held in Lethbridge? And give us some more details about what time it starts and ends. And is it a bit like a come and go event, like just kind of show up and participate as you're able?
Right. Yes, it's going to be at the E-Free Church, which is just a little outside of town on Highway 4. A good sized facility for this event. And there's going to be coffee and refreshments there through the whole time, so people can come and just relax and take in. If you've got the diehards who want to be there the whole time, maybe the younger set can do that. Otherwise, you're welcome to come at any point. It begins Friday night at 6 o'clock. The first session is from North America, the United States. It's a 4-hour session. And then from there, we go to New Zealand for the next 3 hours. And we carry on through the night to Malaysia, Romania, Rwanda, the UK, and finally in Peru. And throughout the night, there are going to be sessions coming in from the persecuted church in different regions around the world. So that'll be very important too, to hear what's going on there and how to be able to pray for them in a more informed way. So yes, people can come and go. They can bring some snacks if they like, and for the time. Fellowship together. There'll be a prayer room that people want to go and just have a little quiet time to pray as well. I'm looking forward to the time together and hoping to be there for as much of it as I can myself.
And I understand that Gather 25 is also encouraging people to invite some friends and neighbors or host a watch party in your own home. It's available online, and it's a great opportunity to gather with fellow Christians. So talk more about that.
Yes. Well, again, we're hosting this, just encouraging as many to come as can to the E-Free Church together. We're seeing this as a great time locally to do something together, a step of unity together. But yes, definitely, you can access their site, Gather 25, and go there, and you can do something in your own home and invite some friends. Any local congregation can do something for their own congregations as well. So it's easily accessible and can be participated in a variety of ways. Again, we see this as a good step to draw the church together locally to be a part of the church globally with what's happening.
And you touched on this already, but tell us a little bit more about the end goal. And do you think a single event like this can bring about tangible change?
Yes, well, the end goal, it starts a while back. God made a promise to Abraham when he called him. He said, I'm going to, through your seed, that's through your descendant, a particular descendant, that would be Christ. I want to bless all the nations, all the families of the earth. And Christ, of course, is that descendant. And through him, God, his heart is for everyone, all the nations, all the families of the earth to be blessed. And as we've heard, there's a good majority, a good chunk of the population that knows him, but there's a lot left to reach. And so the goal, I believe, is to unify the church in a greater way to be more effective in that mandate that he gave us to disciple all nations.
Yeah, you touched on unifying the church today, and I want to talk about that a bit more because, I've noticed that earthly family units do have squabbles from time to time, and sometimes these are often about petty things as well. But what are some of the areas that churches in the tend to clash about?
Well, I mean, there's different levels, right, of clash points, flashpoints. A lot of it can be just differences of tradition, differences of history, practices, in worship styles, in just a basic church service. What does that look like? How does that happen? And often we're unfamiliar, and what we're unfamiliar with, we can be a little bit insecure about, and so those can be things, small things that can kind of get in the way. Sometimes there are deeper issues, hard issues that come into play from history, from congregation to congregation, and those things need to be looked at and addressed if possible by the Lord's leading. But often, and sometimes there are theological things, and again, they tend to be the things that are not as important as the main things. They can be about, how is it all going to end, eschatology or things like that, which unfortunately can be a little divisive, but in the big picture really don't need to be, because the Lord himself, his commission, the gift of righteousness that he's given to all of us, relationship with the Father on earth and eternally, those are the things that really matter. And those are the things that we're, want to foster and build together and minimize those things where we see some differences. We're all, even a husband and wife, speaking of family, don't see everything eye to eye, even though they're building together a life in unity with their families. It's pretty hard to get two people on the earth to agree on every single issue. So we have to leave some of those on the outside and work together on the things that are in the bullseye.
And disunity will often affect an earthly family's function, and there's many examples of that. How does disunity in the family affect the global church's function?
Well, yeah, disunity is a problem, and it doesn't mean, everybody has to be doing exactly the same thing, see everything eye to eye. It means actually a key part of unity is harmony, and working together. The term, the picture of the body that we have in the Word as a picture of His church is a single entity, but it has many, many parts that do different things. We've got the eye that functions for vision. We've got the legs and the feet that carry the body around, and we could not do without any one of those. And I think that the more we can see our part and value the other parts, and the more coordinated we can be together, if you've got an eye here and a hand here, if the church is not united in who it is, you've got a spastic body, as it were, a handicapped body trying to do something. So the more we can be together in who we are, the more effective we're going to be, absolutely, in accomplishing the mandate that God has given to us.
And as we're going through this interview, one Bible verse that just kind of came to my mind. We don't wrestle against flesh and blood, but against powers and principalities and I can't remember the rest right now, but what are some practical things we can do as Christians to walk in unity?
Well, I mean, prayer. Paul, in that very passage, we spoke of that warfare and this battle at a higher level. He said, besides having your armor on that God has given to us, pray. Prayer is such a key thing, and that's, of course, a big part of what this weekend is going to be about. And that's something we can do for building unity here ourselves. Pray for unity. Pray for one another. Other things that I think that are key in unity is the building of relationship, particularly with leaders, pastors of congregations. Trust is such an important thing. And when you trust somebody, some of the other things don't matter so much. When you trust their heart, when you trust their loyalty, we're together, that goes a long way. And the differences minimize. So I think building trust together, particularly with leaders, because when leaders trust each other, then the congregation can say, well, your friend is my friend. If you trust him, we trust him. And that can go a long ways. Sometimes events like this one, or we have in the city, we have a regular a church service around New Year's of every year where a number of congregations gather together to worship and pray and have communion together. Things like that can be a great way to build, because it just kind of takes down those walls. You get to know some other people, and we've had some great times together that way. Valuing the strengths of one another, I think, is something that's important too. Because every congregation has a particular sense of mission. It can be viewed a little bit like if you think in the Army sense that you referred to, the warfare, each congregation is like a platoon or a company that has a mission. It's all towards the bigger end, but we may have a specific part that we focus on. So if we can see ourselves as that broader team working together, that broader army, that really builds towards unity as well. We don't have it all. We need to know what part we play, but we can value each of the other parts as well. And sometimes, just going out and go visit another church sometime. Go to a different church and experience a worship service on Sunday and see how they do it, what it feels like. It just helps and expands your own heart and worldview a little bit.
And can you remind our viewers again when and where Gather 25 is taking place and how to participate wherever you are, including right here in Lethbridge, not just attending, because there's also some volunteer opportunities I hear as well.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah. So again, it's happening around the world. I think in various cities across North America and the world, there will be gatherings like ours, which again is taking place at the E-Free Church, starting Friday night at 6 p.m. and going right through the night and through the next day, Saturday, until 7 o'clock Saturday evening. And again, we'll be just going to different parts of the world throughout that time. There will be coffee and snacks. There will be a prayer room. And yes, if anybody would like to volunteer, there's room for some people there yet who would like to, be in the prayer room, just to be handy, to host there and pray for anybody if they may need it. Be available to serve coffee, probably through the night now in particular. I think some of the other spots are covered, but if anybody wanted to be there in one of the early hours to help out that way, they could. Best thing would be just to contact the E-Free Church, I would say, at this point.
Pastor Craig Weber is the chair of LEMA, the Lethbridge Evangelical Ministerial Association. Thank you so much for your time today.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity, and looking forward to the weekend, and encourage as many to come out as they can.
I'm Naveen Day on behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News. Thanks for watching.